Bitlayer vision is we want to provide a new feature to Bitcoin. Bitcoin was digital gold, it's a store of value, and now we are potentially entering into the second phase of Bitcoin. The transaction can be settled back to Bitcoin. We call this Bitcoin finality.
And that's the ultimate holy grail.
It's the important thing to move the needle to achieve this trustless, programmable environment for Bitcoin. So we can really unlock a lot of TVL of Bitcoin assets from like non-yield bearing assets to yield bearing real financial assets. DeFi protocol like lending, stablecoin, all kinds of primitives. Bitcoin is still the ultimate, most decentralized, highest level of security network in the world. So transactions eventually settle back to Bitcoin is a key thing.
And you're convinced you can pull that off?
We can achieve Bitcoin finality. Because of the level of security upgrade so much, we are able to maybe engage a lot of the Bitcoin whales, Bitcoin OGs, to open up and let them explore this new programmability layer.
Tell me about you as a leader.
Being a founder in Web3 is different. It's really for the sake of making contribution and potentially make history for Bitcoin. It's a higher level beyond us as a vision and mission. This is something unique for sure.
Is this the most fun you've ever had?
The most fun is because it's for Bitcoin. There's nothing else more proud by building things contributing for Bitcoin. It's just unique.
Hey, I know investing in crypto is scary. It takes a real leap of faith because there are so many scams, rug pulls, and bad actors out there. It's a dangerous business, which is why 95% of people lose all their money. Well, that's why I created the London Real Investment Club, so you can access the hottest deals on the planet and use the crypto bull market to create the generational wealth that you deserve. Join my team of over 100 people from around the world that are making millions of dollars behind the scenes investing in blockchain, AI, Web3 games, DeFi, Bitcoin, and more. Don't miss out. Click the link below to book a call with one of my team now. But hurry, this bull market will end soon.
I know investing in crypto can be scary. That's why you gotta join the investment club. Pull the trigger. Let's do this.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Charlie Hu, the Web3 pioneer, decentralized technology expert, and entrepreneur. You have deep experience in the blockchain industry, having first invested in Polkadot in 2017 and later joining Polygon in 2021 to lead development for their Asia-Pacific ecosystem. In 2023, you co-founded Bitlayer, the pioneering Bitcoin Layer 2 solution that is revolutionizing the Bitcoin ecosystem by providing security and scalability. Bitlayer uses the BitVM paradigm with zero-knowledge proofs to process transactions efficiently and securely without compromising on decentralization. You aim to promote innovation and asset diversity to create a faster, more flexible, and safer user experience. Ultimately, you believe Bitlayer is making history by transforming the Bitcoin ecosystem and providing a platform for a new wave of innovation. Charlie, welcome to London Real.
Thank you very much, Brian. Great to be here.
Great having you here. I want to start by saying that Bitlayer is one of our portfolio companies here at London Real Ventures, the world's first media-powered investment firm, where our mission is to transform the world by investing in cutting-edge Web3 and AI companies while giving our partners marketing exposure across the London Real media platforms and academies. We heighten awareness, create customers, and build communities by leveraging our global audience and extensive network. Charlie, we are beyond excited to be part of this journey with you. So let's just jump in. What is Bitlayer?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much to having me here. Great to be in London. Great studio, Great to talk with you in person again. So Bitlayer journey started from last year, right in the wave of the inscription or ordinal summer. We never see such a big, interesting community and the builder vibe back to Bitcoin. And it gets me excited. Also, there was a lot of issues with Bitcoin getting very congested, people paying crazy amount of gas fees, doing those crazy mint, and a lot of garbage UTXO being generated, right? So it gets me thinking, is this the future Bitcoin we want to enter into, right? And now, so we see some interesting proposal being came up by some researchers in the Bitcoin community, including BVM. So BVM is a very interesting way to open up this potential for Bitcoin verification. So that's kind of our vision. We want to provide a new feature to Bitcoin. Bitcoin was digital gold, it's a store of value, and now we are potentially entering into the second phase of Bitcoin. We call this Bitcoin finality. So basically transactions, with all kinds of DeFi, protocols, all things, the transaction can be settled back to Bitcoin. So in the history of Bitcoin, there was multiple attempts. Companies like Lightning, Stacks, Rootstock, all tried to scale or bring the programmability on Bitcoin. They didn't really hit too much, traction in the past, right? And I think key reason was they didn't have the Bitcoin finality. The transaction happening on all those old attempts only settled on the sidechain. So BVM vision, Bitlayer vision is we want to build the first true native Bitcoin layer 2, and to achieve the Bitcoin finality. So how to achieve the Bitcoin verification is the engineering challenge we're working on. So yeah, I think right now up to this moment we have a lot of traction on the mainnet V1. We are about 1 or 2 months away from our V2 launch that we can actually achieve the Bitcoin verification, Bitcoin finality. That's the key first principle importance for to bring this new feature to the Bitcoin ecosystem. We are very excited to launch that and bring that to the community.
And that Bitcoin finality was never really achieved in these other attempts that you mentioned, Lightning and Stacks, and that's the ultimate holy grail.
It's the important thing to move the needle to achieve this trustless programmable environment for Bitcoin, right? So we can really unlock a lot of TVL of Bitcoin assets from non-yield bearing assets, just like a gold, to yield bearing real financial assets that can tap into all kinds of DeFi protocol like lending, stablecoin, all kinds of primitives.
You said that the Bitcoin OGs are kind of suspicious of some of these plays because they don't know if they can trust the bridges and if there's finality, and some of those guys are thinking, okay, it's always going to be a separate side chain. It's never going to be really settled on Bitcoin. That's the ultimate problem to solve, and also to convince them that it can be done?
Yeah, I think the OGs want things in the trustless environment, right? They don't want socially have to trust the multi-signature, which is they have 2/3 or the majority of the signers. That's the trust assumption. It's difficult to really get the needle, right? And I think there was a lot of people kind of trying to say, oh, Bitcoin should have any use cases, which was actually not the case after ordinals came out, right? People really came up with a lot of interesting solutions, and we see the demand from the community from last year. So there's product market fit there from the retail communities, and now OGs now exploring how we can do, without sacrificing, giving away their keys, their assets to other third parties, to access to native Bitcoin yield and access to trustless environment of Bitcoin staking, Bitcoin DeFi protocols and so on. So to achieve that, Bitcoin verification is very important, right? So settle back to Bitcoin layer 1 is a key difference. Sidechains is just sidechain. We have to trust the sidechain, which is difficult, assumption, right? But people trust Bitcoin. People trust Bitcoin security. Bitcoin is still the ultimate, most decentralized, highest level security network in the world. So transactions eventually settle back to Bitcoin is a key thing we need.
And you're convinced you can pull that off?
We're committing a lot of SHA-256 kind of commits on the BigVN community. We have quite a lot of interesting architect and prototype codes already delivered. And we've been talking to a lot of the ZK researchers. And I think we found a very exciting solution, which is pretty innovative, without actually the Bitcoin upgradation of Opcat, deliver this Bitcoin-friendly stock proof. And actually it's cost benefiting. It's not that expensive compared to another approach to deliver this Bitcoin finality.
Okay. There was an article that just recently came out in the Defiant that said Bitcoin layer 2, Bitlayer overtakes Merlin as scaling battle heats up. And it showed you with this majority market share of like 31% on these layer 2s compared with some of these other attempts.
Yeah.
How'd that make you feel?
Yeah, we're getting quite a lot of support from the retail community and also some of the institutional whales. Recent updates we had was we got Franklin Templeton, one of the major Bitcoin ETF licensed firm from the United States, lead our round on Series A, which is quite a big signal in the TradeFi space. So Bitcoin Nashville was certainly very great. 2 days before the conference, we announced it. So a lot of people will start talking to us. We are the number one and the total locked value among all the Bitcoin infrastructure projects based on the DeFi Llama data. So, but I think still we are early stage compared to all the Ethereum DeFi layer 2s like Arbitrum. They are a couple of billion. We're still kind of early stage.
You're like $500 million right now, something like that.
Yeah, we have around $500 million. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Franklin Templeton, because you kind of hinted it to me when we were hanging out in Austin, Texas. And I was like, what? I said, I couldn't believe that a big traditional financial institution was savvy enough to invest in a Bitcoin layer 2. And I was pretty surprised. And they're obviously big players in the Bitcoin ETF. They got $1.5 trillion of assets.
Yes.
I mean, it's a big player.
Yeah.
They're West Coast. Can you talk about how that happened and maybe explain why that's such a big, important move? I mean, to me, that's like JP Morgan investing in you. I mean, that's a huge sign. And it also means they might even be using your layer 2, which is even bigger.
We've been chatting to their partner. They actually really exploring that, to use that, not just like a passive investor, right? So, I mean, my journey with Franklin Templeton started from last year. In Dubai FinTech Summit, I saw the chairman and CEO, Jenny Johnson, was on stage on the Dubai FinTech Summit. They expanded their chapter in Dubai and talking about the potential ETF. So that was like, all the way from that, I kind of know they were applying for the Bitcoin ETF. Obviously, the whole industry moved to the next chapter, right? In the beginning of this year, I think around 13 firms, right, really properly get the license issued by SEC on the Bitcoin ETF. And then we had this rally, right? The Bitcoin pumped quite a bit and majorly actually pushed by the institutional purchasing, right? So I think we could argue this cycle is quite different compared to 2021 cycle. That last cycle was very driven by retail. This cycle heavily driven by institution right now, right? I think the reason Franklin Templeton was interesting to invest us and also a few other Bitcoin ecosystem projects is because they wanted to be the position. They actually understand the industry. They actually know the additional yield opportunity, without selling their clients Bitcoin exposure to tap into new yield opportunity. As we said, as your Bitcoin holder in the past, you don't have yield opportunity, right? You're just putting your cold wallet doing nothing, right? There's no interest opportunity. The only way you get access to some yield is like giving away access to third parties as a centralized kind of CFI, we call this, right? And then we all know what happened 2 years ago with all the major institution breakout and it crashed. So that was there. And I think Franklin Templeton definitely wants to explore the new paradigm, right? With a new Bitcoin ETF, Bitcoin DeFi, and Bitcoin ecosystem. So what I heard from the partners, they established this Web3 investment arm 2 years ago called Franklin Templeton Digital Assets. And that's the focus purely on Web3, which was, I think they kind of made a history 2 years ago already, right? It was quite a bold move and it's trying to be pioneering and progressive. And then they really struggling to looking at it, good projects to invest, especially in the Bitcoin space, because they want to be Bitcoin first because they know they're most likely going to get a Bitcoin ETF, which they got this year, right? There was not too many projects they could invest. So from my knowledge, they only invest with a small check into a Bitcoin wallet company called Xverse. That was 2023. Okay. That's it. And then they're looking at a few other Web3 infrastructure. But this year, they're getting really active. So the conversation with them getting pretty productive when we actually growing pretty fast. We grow our community and also traction from like 100 million TVL to 400 during the time we were talking to them. The community will grow from 100K to 500K during that time. And obviously that was the time we get a lot of partnership announcement with a lot of interesting DeFi builders, and consumer facing applications as well. So obviously this Ordinals and the BRC20 and the Bitcoin layer 2 kind of, narrative rally is pretty helpful. And they kind of been educating themselves quite a lot. And they want to take some bets on the Bitcoin ecosystem. Actually, more than I thought. They've been pretty active last couple months. After investing us, they also invest a few other projects that are our partners in the ecosystem, which it's great to know. And I think based on their feedback, they really want to explore how to explore yield opportunity with different risk appetite for their clients. Because at the end of the day, for them it's like AUM business as well, right? They hold their clients' assets and money. They tap into Bitcoin exposure now, and they don't want to sell their Bitcoin exposure, right? They want to tap into new yield. So they want to be the position they have a higher return for their clients rather than just charge less fee for the clients, right? Because it's kind of like similar commodity, right? They have the Bitcoin ETF. The other 12 firms also have Bitcoin ETF. So it's essentially the same, but why people want to work with them, right? I think that's kind of how they want to differentiate themselves. Instead of being just the cheapest ETF because of the fee, they want to be the highest yield or being the sophisticated Bitcoin ETF firm. I think that makes a lot of sense strategically, and they probably can sell another 1 or 2 billion Bitcoin exposure in the upcoming months.
So when I started on Wall Street, it was 1993, and I worked for a fixed income derivatives trading shop called Bankers Trust. And so you start to learn that Wall Street firms, I mean, they live and die by yield. It's all about yield, and there's a yield curve. And fixed income, it's funny, I used to go out in Manhattan at night and people would say, "Are you a stockbroker?" And we used to laugh at stockbrokers because stockbrokers were these little punks. We were moving billions of dollars of government debt and swaps and 30-year trades, and that's where the big money was. So it's weird to have this asset, this Bitcoin, this digital gold that just sits around and doesn't have a yield. Ethereum has a kind of a staking element now and potentially a future yield curve, but Bitcoin doesn't. And it's just screaming out for a solution, right? And Franklin Templeton realizes
I think the industry just grew to this threshold, like we are such a big market cap assets now. We have to have yield, right? I think 10 years ago in the cyberpunk era of Bitcoin community, you don't necessarily have that, right? You only care about how to mine more Bitcoin. And now, because of this is a third halving, cycle, every single 20 minutes, the block, which can mine out is getting less and less. So people wants to get into the yield opportunity, right? And then people needs to figure out what kind of use cases on Bitcoin network that can generating fees, right? The fees can repay back to the miners and so on. That happened last year in ordinals. So that's kind of the interesting paradigm shift. In the beginning, people don't like BRC20, ordinals, even the miner, including Bitcoin Core. They think it's all garbage UTXO. It's actually even like an attack for Bitcoin network, right? It's bullshit. Some people can say that. But eventually miners realize, oh my God, there's like interesting additional block rewards they have, which is economically great for them. And they don't even know what happened. And then they start realize, okay, there's a lot of interesting network happening in the Bitcoin space. People minting, Bitcoin ordinals assets, BRC20, and that was like real community, like from retail, from artists, from builders, talking about Bitcoin more and more. So Bitcoin, instead of just being traded heavily on the centralized exchanges, right, which is off-chain, a lot of on-chain activities in Bitcoin happening. That is very new. It didn't really happen before ordinals, right? And then really kind of, I would say, flip a bit on the paradigm, right? The people realize, okay, we should do something on Bitcoin. We should even build things on Bitcoin. That's all these came from last year.
Right. And that all kind of kicked off at the very first Ordinal Summit, which was in Singapore right before Token 2049 conference. I was actually at that event because I was there a day earlier, and I know some guys building on the Bitcoin ecosystem, the Opal Network guys, and Ben Charbit, who were kind of associated with Animoca, and they said, "Brian, you want to come?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I went there, and there were guys walking around in capes and stuff, and they're like, "Brian, this is like the early Bitcoin builder vibe here, where people just want to build because it's cool, and they love it." And there was a good vibe. Domo was on stage, who I know is an advisor, investor in your company. And Casey was there, and they had come up with these kind of BRC20 protocols, and all this stuff was exploding. It was really exciting. That was less than a year ago that happened. It's kind of amazing how fast the market's moved. And that protocol kicked off the fact you could have like a token on the Bitcoin chain, right? It was very important historically, this moment.
It was part of history, which worth remembering, right? Worth mentioning even a couple of years later, because that was the tipping point that bring a lot of builders' attention, at least my attention. I was never a Bitcoin maxi or laser eye. I never did anything for Bitcoin community all the way from like 2010 or whatever, right? It was different. I was an East builder, right? And involved with Polkadot, Polygon, and a few other layer 1, layer 2s, which is all programmable, right? Bitcoin never had this programmability capability in the past. And with ordinals, I think the reason it's getting a lot of people's attention and excitement is they have this new asset protocol. So you can generate in your fungible assets, the BRC20, even ARC20, and now it's runes, right? On top of Bitcoin and network. It happened in Ethereum in 2017 on ICO era, right? So that was cool. Once you have on-chain synthetic assets owned by the project, by the builders, people want to bring use cases on top of that. So literally, I think last year from 2023 February till now, we experienced the entire Bitcoin ecosystem the same as Ethereum in the last 8 years. All the way from 2016, people were talking about generating assets on Ethereum, and then we have ICOs, then we have DeFi summer in 2020, we have NFT summer in 2021 with gaming, metaverse. All these had a crash course of the compact version, more compact version, shorter version in Bitcoin. I remember very vividly, we were inscribing all the Bitcoin bitmap. So basically like a native Bitcoin version of metaverse. And each of the Bitcoin block equals to one land. So altogether we have over 850 piece of lands now. But that's like interesting idea, bring this dimension of time into metaverse. Because if you think about it, each land equals a period of time. It's one block time, right? Bitcoin block time is around 10 to 15 or 20 minutes. So you can bring the time dimension on the lands. So that's part of the history. So when we say Bitlayer trying to make history, because Bitcoin is the Web3 infrastructure, really worth mentioning about history. It was 15 years of history, a lot of things happened, and the Bitcoin, all the things on the Bitcoin chain, it's there. It's there forever. It's tamper-proof, right? It's immutable, which is great. So I think that's kind of really brings this special vibe and a special energy back to Bitcoin community, right? Yeah, so that's something, for me, it's like super exciting. So whatever we do for Bitcoin, even we have some, try and error, it's part of history. I don't really have that. I don't really get that vibe from Polkadot, from like Ethereum community. Yeah.
And do the Bitcoiners embrace you, even though you're not the old school OG Bitcoiner?
I think some people like us in a way. We bring new users back to Bitcoin,
right?
And we bring builders back, right? Let's face it, Bitcoin in the past was all miner focused. Miners think about how much electricity they pay, how many Bitcoins you can mine. That's it, right? They go to Bitcoin events. I own Bitcoin, you own Bitcoin, you talk about this miner, that's it. There's no other topics.
They talk about miners, and then they talk about financial, fiat currencies and inflation.
So maybe talk about OTC, talk about how fiat is broken, right? That's it, right?
I know.
Yeah, and maybe talk about maybe payment, solutions.
Right.
That's pretty much it.
They say Lightning's going to work one day.
One day, right? And I think compared to USDT, USDC, we have way less payment, adoption in Lightning than the others, right? Way less. So I think that's that. But from all of those last year, we got so much new things coming along, right? We got so many new people in the space. I think some of them may not be the same people as the Bitcoin OGs, but at the end of the day, we're trying to create the pie bigger. We're trying to make the party bigger, right? When we talk about mass adoption, you can't just keep the elites, sort of the cyberpunks, stay there, and everybody have to listen to them, that's it. It needs to be a free market with new people, with new supply and new idea in a very welcoming way to join the party, right? Otherwise, it's become like kind of hypocrite, right? When we talk about mass adoption, but the old people just hate all the new ones to come over, which is kind of contradictory, right? I think Ordinals really opened up these gates, right, to allow the builders to think about what you can do on Bitcoin. But now with Bitcoin layer 2, we have all this programmable layer, it's even more, right? Some people could argue that's a Pandora box, but I think history kind of make the point like people want it. There's a demand there, and there's a reason we should have the adoption of Bitcoin ecosystem because of the miner with additional rewards, with less and less block rewards every single block. Miners want getting the yield from the additional block rewards because of transaction happening in Bitcoin, rather than just mine out the new ones. Because at the end of the day, we have the cap, 21 million Bitcoin. That's it, right? So the miners are paying a lot of electricity fee, just earning less and less Bitcoin rewards.
Are ordinals still hot, or have they quieted down a little bit? Do you think they'll continue to be? Is Runes also going to bring some new life into this BRC20 protocol?
It's a good question. I think compared to last year's, especially a certain period, especially like let's say in November, we could argue it was overheated a bit. Now, quiet down a bit, but I still quite a lot of transaction going on. There's a lot of new ordinals assets, like some new mint, some new collections, which has interesting community support. I think BRC20 is still there and have interesting tickers being minted out. People trying to figure out how to, explore use cases for all the BRC20 assets. Some of them are exploring with Bitlayer to, with some bridges to bridge to layer 2. And they can tap into all kinds of DeFi protocols. They can borrow against it. They can become like a part of liquidity as a collateral and things like that. So all these are kind of happening. In terms of Runes, I think it was definitely a bit overhyped during this halving season. Rune is a bit different. It's more fungible. It's more mimetic, right? It feels like a meme coin for a meme coin protocol on Bitcoin. And a few of the Rune protocol have interesting threshold. Like they hit interesting market cap, like Dark to the Moon, for example. But I think it's still very early for Rune assets, right? But at the end of the day, for us, we are very neutral. We don't just sit on one asset protocol. Whatever asset protocol on Bitcoin layer 1, as long as they have interesting transaction, interesting momentum, if they need cheaper gas fee, more programmability, tap into the real DeFi use cases, which you can do that on Bitcoin layer 1, we welcome them, right? So we are kind of in the process kicking off another ecosystem campaign to embrace all the NFT collections, all the BRC20 communities. Like we're talking to the stats big communities, we're talking to the rats communities. We're trying to figure out how to work with like Pizza Ninja, On-Chain Monkey, and a lot of interesting, good vibe NFT collection as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're invested in MetaGood. We know Danny from On-Chain Monkeys. So I got my first BRC20 tokens the other day because we invested in Ordinals Bot, which is a great company.
Nice.
Toby, love it. So I finally got them, and they showed up in my Express wallet. And I was like, okay, Toby, I gotta go do something with these. I was like, I'm gonna hold your tokens, but I wanna see what I can do with them. And needless to say, it was a pretty painful experience trying to go in. I mean, there's not a DEX per se, but there is kind of a marketplace where I could try to convert them to some fiat or some Bitcoin. But man, you realize how spoiled you are in the Ethereum ecosystem because this was a difficult process.
A lot of things you think for granted in Ethereum doesn't really happen in Bitcoin layer 1, right? You have to go through 2 processes to inscribe and mint, and then you have to put into like a floor price, like sell like NFT, which they have very little liquidity sometimes, right? The user experience was kind of broken. A lot of wallets company, including OKX wallet, Xverse and Unisat, they try their best, but still, because of the lack of programmability on Bitcoin layer 1, you can't really do that. And I'm curious, like from your perspective, how much gas fee you paid last year?
I mean, it wasn't just that. I mean, first of all, understanding it was a challenge. And I mean, like I can get my way around most ecosystems, but I finally figured it out after a couple of tutorial videos. But then the weirdest thing happened. I could have swore, I'm pretty sure, that the asset traded at a higher price than I was selling it for.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to sell some big size. It was a smaller size, but it looked like there was a price discrepancy where it traded at a higher price than I was selling. And I sat there looking at my block thinking, what the hell just happened? It took 20, 30 minutes to get the trade done, maybe longer. Yeah. And at that point, I think I was just shocked that it actually transacted. And I don't even know what the gas I paid, but I was really taken aback by how much this needs work.
And you get a front runner sometimes, right? Doing some crazy mint, literally a lot of the mint get failed because other people front run you.
Right. Well, my order was just sitting out there for like a long time, so it would have been really easy to front run me or do whatever.
True. They pay higher gas fee on that.
Yeah. So it was just a reality to me. I should have known better, but I was like, wow, this really needs some help. I'm guessing you guys will solve a lot of those problems.
Yeah, a lot of those transactions, like you get a front run or with MEV, that kind of things. If it's on our layer 2, one, it's much cheaper. It's like multiple hundreds times cheaper, and then much faster in terms of the confirmation time, finality time, and we have more use cases you can able to do. You can't really do AMM on Bitcoin layer 1.
You can't.
You cannot.
Right. Yeah. Right. So there's no liquidity there.
Yeah.
There's no pools.
There's no
market
liquidity pool.
makers.
There's no smart contract. You can't really do perp DEX. You cannot do a prediction market, all these kind of a bit more complicated use cases.
I think a lot of people don't realize all the liquidity behind the scenes that allows them to do the things that they want to do. And this was, I teach this to some of my students, like what is liquidity? But when you're faced with a lack of liquidity, you really understand the limitations of the layer one.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we need you to build this.
Yeah, a lot of BRC20 assets now kind of sitting in no man's land because they can't sell. There's no liquidity, right? You put a sell order kind of in the floor price, area. Nobody buys. So essentially a lot of assets goes to zero immediately because of liquidity pulled out, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that's the problem. Yeah.
When will your mainnet be live for things like that, or do you still need people to build on it and build dexes?
We live 3 months ago already on the V1. We have around 200 projects already deployed our chain.
Right.
The active ones are around 60 of them are very active with like a lot of transactions, user base using that, and some of them have a very big amount of liquidity already, TVL. So
they're like BRC20 DEX.
BRC20 DEX, some normal DEX as well, like with intent based, some like lending protocol, getting some interesting traction. Like Avalon Finance, for example, they have over 350 mil TV already. Yeah. We have some exciting new perp DEX like Rodex now exploring, working with us, like trying to be like the Arbitron, GMX kind of relationship. In Bitcoin, you would never imagine there's like a GMX kind of perp DEX on that. Right now, it's all possible.
So I could go in and maybe sell my BRC20 tokens on Bitlayer, on some of the DEXs on Bitlayer now?
Yeah.
I could?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're compatible to BRC20, Rune assets, and also normal like programmable Bitcoin. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then what's the future? I guess what you're really trying to do is that finality.
Yeah.
But what is your ecosystem like, and what do you think the whole ecosystem looks like 12 months from now, 24 months from now?
Great question. I think, so first of all, our V2 mainnet is like 1 or 2 months away. Our engineering team is actively working on that, test out, now engaging the security auditing firm as well. It's going to still be a test net, but we'll engage all the developers to try that out, right? And then I think the mainnet of the V2 version will be launched Q4 this year. With that, we can achieve Bitcoin finality, right? Transaction proof will be batched, eventually being settled back to Bitcoin layer 1, right? That's basically give us the security level of Bitcoin layer 1 security. That's very different compared to a sidechain, which your security level is maintained by your validator sets, right? It's very different trust assumption, very different level of security. Obviously, we have to pay a certain amount of fees for the security cost, right? But because of the level of security upgrade so much, we are able to maybe engage a lot of the Bitcoin whales, Bitcoin OGs to open up and explore and let them explore this new programmability layer, right? Because we could argue a lot of OGs don't want to try any Bitcoin layer 2 at this moment because of different trust assumption, right? Yeah. And I think the market going to become better and later Q4. And if we hit some interesting use cases, like when you bridging your assets, when they actually tap into the layer 2, there's some interesting use case people really want to use, right? And I think that will be important because at the end of the day, no matter how infrastructure technology upgraded, you need use cases to allow users, either it's B2B or B2C users, to really use your piece of infrastructure, right? So that's very key. When people just keep bragging about how cool the technology is on the infrastructure layer, how to bring use cases, that's even more important question for me, I think.
What are use cases besides just DeFi? Besides me getting yield?
DeFi is a key use cases, yeah. Right? Like stable coins, all these are very important building blocks for big DeFi primitive. We are exploring something interesting with AI as well, and in a different approach. So it's more like on the content generation side. We all know AI can create interesting content like video, graphics, right? Some crazy good ones, right? High quality. But at the end of the day, that AI processing, it's off-chain, right? The content is off-chain. But the prompt words, it's just like 20 words or something, right? We can even put into recursive inscription, make it very, very low cost, like very low, small file. But it's on Bitcoin. It's inscribed on Bitcoin. So imagine our video today eventually can recursive back to like 20 words of prompt, like, just put, describe like Brian Rose, Charlie Hu, on this day and something like that. And that's like it's like a proof, like an inscription in that specific block. It's part of the history. So imagine we think about all kinds of things which needs to be written in the history. but instead of written in the Alexander library or whatever, like, physical books or history books, it's on Bitcoin. Bitcoin become one of the biggest history book, which people pay for that, right? You can see it. And the heavy content, the high quality content is recursive back with AI engine.
So we could take this episode and with 20 keywords, it could be reproducible by an AI engine?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that proof, that specific keywords is on Bitcoin.
Right. Well, I mean, I have a huge interest in that because I literally had content that was deleted from the internet because of my censorship issues.
Yeah.
And we also know that this Wayback Machine that used to be, we thought, this immutable record of what the internet was in the past, we know it's been tampered with governments and things like that. And so now more than ever, it's so important to have this immutable layer. And I think we all agree it's definitely Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And if I could put my stuff on Bitcoin, it means it could be there forever.
So Bitcoin is still there, right? It's tamper-proof as always, right? It's immutable as always. But the problem is Bitcoin's block space is very expensive.
Yeah.
We can't really put 4 megabytes of video file on Bitcoin. You can't. It's not possible. It's 4 megabytes each block right now. So AI come in place on that part.
And it could tap into a set of keywords that would then output that video.
Yes. I think that's part of what will be very exciting. I'm personally pretty interested. Obviously, all these are very new, right? People talk about deeping as well, right? I think it's going to be interesting, but I think Bitcoin has a long way to go for that. We need like multiple layer of infrastructure, even like layer 3, like deeping layer 3, to settle, right? And then like multiple layers to settle back. Because at the end of the day, right now, we look at Bitcoin ecosystem, the cost for security is higher than the others, right? Yeah. You need to pay for the cost. So Bitcoin has the highest level of security, but you need to pay for that economically. So which leads to the infrastructure cost is slightly higher than a lot of Ethereum layer 2 on Solana and a few other kind of like semi-centralized infrastructure. Why people waiting to pay for that? Because it's on Bitcoin. Right. Because of the high cost, because the high level of security, it's ultimate decentralization. So we need to looking for like high level of value use cases, which eventually hit the product market fit. Users are willing to pay that amount of fee, right, to tap into that.
Right.
So that's kind of a new frontier we have to explore in the use cases. Yeah.
Identity will be a big part of that.
Identity will be potentially some kind of SBT as well, like high valued one, right?
SBT is
soul bound tokens.
Okay.
Yeah, like all these are already in Ethereum.
Right.
But some of them doesn't really have big traction due to various reasons, right? I think for me is like, let's take NFT example. A lot of NFT really become not valuable after a while, right? After the hype is gone, because one, lack of use cases. Two, people really don't think it's precious. There's no like sense of precious on a lot of Ethereum NFT after a while, right? Whereas Bitcoin, it really have that, right? It's tamper-proof, it's natively minted, inscribed on Bitcoin, and it's there forever. And some of them have a very low supply. It gives you this kind of Bitcoin culture, Bitcoin scarcity, this Bitcoin precious there, right? That's very important. And that's kind of the reason retail or even some institution willing to pay higher fee for that. And I think that's kind of the product market fit we need to explore in Bitcoin ecosystem. We instead of just copy paste what worked, what it was already there in Ethereum, make a slight twist and then make it high end. I think that's kind of what we call this high end. Yeah.
When do you think I'll be able to plug in my Bitcoin and get a yield with finality? And then when we might see some volume
we're gonna see that maybe
year?
within the next 6 months, okay. as like early version. Like if we talk about like big traction, hitting the critical mass, within the next 12 months.
I bet you'll see some whale OGs dip their toe because they're sitting on a lot of Bitcoin.
Yes.
And even a few percent can move the needle.
Yeah.
And I would think they would try it with a small piece and see what happens.
Yeah, that's what happened with Ethereum. When Ethereum layer 2 came out, the Ethereum whales tried that. And now like multiple Ethereum layer 2 have multiple billion of TVL. Right. Yeah.
One thing about Bitlayer is you are also building an EVM chain as well.
Yeah. So
that
our
makes
layer
you very
2
different.
Our layer 2 is EVM compatible, right? For the sake of developer friendly, we need to be. Compared to UTXO chain, which require developers to really rebuild a lot of things from scratch. I think that's the very important thing. But in the future, we're exploring multiple VM. So we have this solution called a layered virtual machine we're going to deliver, which is going to support even Solana VM, Cairo VM, and so on. Because we all know EVM is a technology being proven. it worked. A lot of, still like majority of the developer in the Web3 world use EVM for all kind of applications. So it's important, right, to have that. But we all also know that EVM is old technology. It's been like 7 years, not being updated too much. It originally come from the Parity team from Ethereum, right? Gavin Wood was one of the key inventor of that. EVM is important, but EVM is not the ultimate solution. We are looking at new virtual machine for programmability, right? Which is important. So breed the high performance, multiple VM compatible programmability layer for Bitcoin is the vision we want to have.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happens to Bitcoin and the crypto market, in your opinion, over the next 12 months? And we've got the Bitcoin ETF, we got the Ethereum ETF, we just had Bitcoin Nashville.
Yep.
Former president spoke, most likely
Yep.
the next president, Bobby Kennedy's there. Senator Loomis proposes 1 million Bitcoin strategic reserve.
Yeah.
I mean, you're there in the middle of it, the biggest one ever. How are you feeling? Like, what do you think happens next? And how is the vibe? And then how does that relate back to Bitlayer?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking. I was personally there and I really, really enjoyed the conference. We had a booth, Bitlayer, I was on the stage, really, great honor to speak with a lot of Bitcoin OGs, meet people in person. And obviously that was part of history. We literally was witnessing history and maybe contributing a part of the history on that by potential future president of the United States, give a big speech about all these announcements, future reserve for the United States. So instead of get rid of all the 200,000 Bitcoin, they probably just hold it for long term, right? Even purchase more, which is a massive bull signal. And even the senators, the congressmen, the U.S. House of Representatives, a lot of key political figures were kind of promoting Bitcoin. So the people on the stage are all talking about the good things of Bitcoin, right? So that was really, really interesting vibe. And I think in general, we can summarize in a way, Bitcoin hitting to this level, the industry grow to this level that even the major political figures needs Bitcoin into part of their strategy, no matter it's election or business and so on, right? I was also in the enterprise stage seeing a lot of major S&P, Fortune 500 companies, like the CFO, the CEOs, talking about their upcoming Bitcoin strategy. Either it's Bitcoin mining or treating Bitcoin assets as part of their treasury management as alternative assets, all the other things.
Or accepting Bitcoin from the customers.
As customers for payments and so on, right? So I gave me this vibe of 2021 when all the major companies, including Facebook, in changing their name to Meta, everybody talk about metaverse strategy. This cycle, everybody start talking about Bitcoin strategy. It's very important, and it's not just politically right, it's just business important, right? For business side, in the business side, you need to figure out the Bitcoin strategy one way or the other. You don't miss the trend, right? Treating Bitcoin as an important asset, potentially even more important than the gold, right? And then you maybe put some of that into your balance sheet, categorize it into a payment gateway, or maybe tap into the ecosystem, building things on Bitcoin. Michael Saylor said that, Franklin Templeton investing in us and also tapping into this field. All these are kind of happening. So I would say 2 years ago, I would never imagine that. It was all just in front of me doing Bitcoin Nashville, which was great. And I think more importantly, it was just, as I said, the builder culture back. There were so many developers and technical savvy engineers, having all these events, side events, doing, sharing what they've been doing, building on stage. That's very important because we only saw that in Ethereum community, Ethereum DevCon, maybe on Solana, some of the hacker house and stuff. It didn't really happen in Bitcoin. It was essentially all just miners talking about how much Bitcoin you can mine, why your miners actually have the cost benefiting aspects, right? And how many megawatts. That was their topic. That's it, right? We still have a very big portion of the miners in their booth. I had a good conversation with Marathon, which is a huge company, one of the biggest one in the Bitcoin space in the United States. They are a public listed company. They even think about trying to build a Bitcoin sidechain. They had a VIP dinner with us. We co-host together. We're being generally talking to them.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.